Shabbat Shalom. It's traditional in Droshot, in homilies on the Parsha, to pick a certain phrase or word from the Parsha, to claim that this word is superfluous, adds nothing, or repeats something that we already know, and then to offer some sort of creative interpretation in which we squeeze out of this supposedly superfluous phrase or word some new insights into the story the Torah is telling us, or some insights into ethics or philosophy or whatever. But it doesn't have to be a word that's superfluous. Sometimes there are details in the Parsha that are absolutely essential to the story, and yet we can squeeze from them much more than the details that they add to the story that the Torah is telling us. For example, in this week's Parsha, we have the story of the ruse performed by Yaakov and on the instructions of his mother Rivka, in order to get the blessings that his father Yitzchak, Isaac, wanted to give to his brother, to Yaakov's brother Esau, the blessings in which he basically passes on the mantle of our founding father Abraham, and becomes the next in line to lead what will become the Jewish people. Now, the story begins with the Torah telling us, "Vayiki zaken Yitzchak v'tachena einav me'arot." When Yitzchak became old, he lost his eyesight. This is obviously a very critical detail, very critical part of the story, because the ruse would not have worked if Isaac was able to see. The whole ruse worked because Isaac could not see, and so by putting on goat skins, he simulated Esau's hairy, hirsute arms, and when Yitzchak went to feel him, he felt something very hairy, and so on. The story is well known. So this detail at which the Torah opens the story is obviously critical. It's the pivot in which the whole story, the whole ruse works. Nonetheless, there are some very nice things that Midrashim and other biblical interpreters have taken out of these phrases, and I want to just share with you a few of them. Some connect it to the great spiritual experience, which is sort of the hallmark or the watershed in Isaac and Yitzchak's career, the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. This was as great a spiritual experience as one can have in this lifetime, really a near-death experience in many senses of the word. And these types of experiences leave their mark on the person physically and mentally and spiritually. And so, according to this interpretation, it was these eyes which actually saw the Shechina were damaged, and as he got older, he lost his eyesight. Another interpretation, which I found in a medieval Yemenite midrash, Nor of the Lam, the light of the darkness, which was published in original and translation by my revered teacher Rav Yosef Kapach, Zecher Tzedek Livracha, and I have selections from it in my book on Yemenite midrash. This author connects it to Maimonides' theory of prophecy. Now, Maimonides has a theory in which he establishes for us what we would call the necessary though not sufficient conditions for a person to prophesy. They're necessary because without meeting these basic criteria, it's impossible for a person to be a prophet, and if he claims to be a prophet, we can tell right away that he's lying. But they're not sufficient because according to Maimonides, according to Rambam, even someone who has met all the criteria for prophecy will not be a prophet, will not prophesy unless God wills to send him a message. God can shut off the pipeline between the divine and human, even for a person who has reached this level of perfection. Now, this is something that's probably not very well known and be hard for some to understand, but among the criteria that Maimonides, that the Rambam lists to be eligible for prophecy is a perfect physical brain. The brain, this organ in our body within our skull, must be perfect. It must be of the perfect size. There are ranges of size of a brain's, but there's a certain one optimal size. It has to be that optimal size. It has to be the optimal temperature. Again, the brain, even in his medieval theory, was supposed to be a cold organ, but it could range in a certain spectrum. Had to be at the optimal temperature, the optimal positioning in terms of the angle and its placement within the skull, the optimal physical matter, what we would call the cell matter. And anyone whose brain is not born this way, there's not something that you can remedy by diet, by exercises. You have to be born with this optimal physical brain, has no chance of prophesying. Now, obviously, Isaac was born with a brain that was perfect, and he could become a prophet, otherwise, and go through the experience of the Kedah. But as he got old, it degenerated a bit, and he could no longer prophesy. And this is why, when Yaakov came in, he had no extrasensory indication that this was Yaakov and not Esau. He couldn't see with his eyes, with our biological eyesight because of old age. But he also didn't have this prophecy, this extrasensory, supersensory ability to sense things, even if he couldn't use his bodily senses. So Yaakov, Yitzchak, Isaac had no way of knowing this was really Yaakov. But the third and last is of a different nature altogether, and much more, I would say, down to earth, and something that I think we can all identify with one way or the other. This is that when the Torah tells us that Isaac, Yitzchak, was blinded, he was blinded by the love of a parent for a child. Parents can sometimes love their children so much that they are blinded to their children's misbehavior or evil. And the Torah tells us at the beginning of the Parshat, Vayehav Yitzchak et Esav kitzayit befiv. Yitzchak, Isaac, loved Esau very much. And as Esau progressed and went down the wrong path, Yitzchak simply could not see it. He was not able, as a father, to see that his son was on the wrong path, was becoming a very disreputable and evil person. And that is why he insisted to the end that he wanted to give, or almost to the end. At the very end, he realized that it was good that he gave the blessings to Yaakov, but almost to the end, he wanted to give the blessings to Esau. Now, you may ask, well, what about the mother, Rivka, his mother? She was able to see that Esau was not the one worthy of the blessing. And they explain that in this way, in this aspect of life, at the very least, women are more resilient than men. And we explained this on the basis of the biblical creation of Adam and Eve. Adam was made from clay, and Eve was made from a bone, from Adam's rib cage. Now, if you knock a clay pot, it shatters, but if you knock a bone, it doesn't break. And so, when the paternal or maternal love of Isaac shattered his sense of judgment, and he couldn't see how bad Esau was. But Rivka's maternal love did not shatter her sense of judgment, and she knew that the blessings should go to